Hi, everybody, and welcome one more time to El Camino People, the podcast. Today, of course, we're talking about the Camino de Santiago, and we're talking about the great people and the great friends that you met while walking. And today we will meet a dear pilgrim. Then once he was in Pamplona, he decided to, why not? Let's call Jose and let's have some fun and let's discover Pamplona with a local. And let me introduce you to Kendall. How are you doing, Kendall? Thank you to be here today with us.
Wow, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. That's always my pleasure to invite people into Pamplona to go for pinchos and to enjoy the beautiful city that I'm the lucky one to live in and the lucky one that has plenty of pilgrims going by and not so many that I can join and keep walking to Santiago. So a blessing and also a nightmare that you see everybody going and you're still here. But it is what it is.
That's fair.
No complaints. So anyway, we always start, with the 1 minute questionnaire. 1 minute sheet of paper, and the whole idea is to see how many questions you can answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Your first Camino.
It's the Camino Frances.
City.
My favorite city, or just a city? Pamplona.
One meal.
Sorry, what was that one?
One meal.
Tortilla.
One song.
Ooh. I will survive. I don't know.
A stage of the Camino.
Meseta.
A happy moment.
Cruz de Ferro.
One color.
Red.
A smell.
Ooh. Flowers.
Canteen or Camelback.
Camelback.
Fisterra o Muxia.
Pistere.
Coffee with milk or solo.
Milk.
Omelette with onions or without onions.
Without.
Poof. Apple or Android.
Apple.
A drink.
Beer.
Really, no onions? You're one of those?
Yeah, not an onion scowl.
Okay. At least you say Pamplona, so then you're 50-50. Okay, you save it. So anyway, first question, I always wonder how people discover the Camino de Santiago. So you're from the States, you live in Dallas.
Mhm.
How did you find out about the Camino de Santiago?
My mom actually, I will get to the background of it at some point, I'm sure, but she showed me the movie The Way,
Okay.
which is like, I know that's so clear. All us Americans like, oh, we saw a movie and then we decided to go do
that,
it.
that was what I was gonna say. I'm like, that's the American reason number 1 million. Yes, but the way,
Yeah,
check.
yeah, yeah. It's like you see a movie about ice skating, you're like, I'm going to be an ice skater. It was like kind of
Yeah, you know what I
it's
saw the other day? The Mighty
kind of like
Ducks. I
that for
saw
me.
the whole thing of the Mighty Ducks. I'm like, I saw this a new TV show. I'm like, yeah, let's watch the Mighty Ducks. And we go on the streets, and yes, I want to be a hockey player. I'm like, we didn't even, here in Pamplona, hockey doesn't even exist, ace hockey till like 5 years ago. But yeah, that's what happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you watched The Boy with your mom,
Yeah, both my parents.
and when was that? When you know?
So that was around this time last year, I guess, like fall of last year. I think we watched it maybe October ish.
So really, like, did you know anything about the Camino de Santiago
Yeah,
prior to
which was
that?
shocking because
Nothing.
I mean, I think I maybe did. I just didn't know that I did because
Hmm.
as a Catholic, like I know about all these pilgrimages and things that
But
people have
never.
and the history of it and stuff. But I think I just never really connected the dots, maybe in my head.
And your mom, how did your mom knew like about the movie? From something for church, something from a like a talk or
I'm
a
not sure
book?
how she knew. She was just like, "Oh, this is a feel good movie. We should watch it," and it
I'm
took on
like
a
because
whole life of its
I, I
own.
I watched it the other day and I'm like right now I'm like it's like this is quite old. I'm like
Hmm.
hasn't you see the quality of the movie and it's like wow, this is not 4K 4K.
No, but it's
It
great.
was kind of it is a great movie indeed. I'm
Mhm.
like it's one of the things that but it's funny how about probably like 50-60% of Americans the thing that triggers the Camino is the movie The Way.
Yeah, yep, I believe
But
that for sure.
so then you watch the movie The Way and you think I'm like, it's time to walk the Camino. I'm like something that just stayed, back in the top of your head. And how did the process go on from that moment?
Yeah, so I guess like one of the reasons we watched it, like it seemed like around this time last year, I thought I had my plan for for my life and all this kind of stuff, and then series of events kind of unraveled that, and I felt very just like lost and confused,
Hmm.
and like it was a season of struggle for me for sure, which I'm now actually very grateful for, because it was, I think it was the first time in my life I actually took just took a beat, honestly, to be like,
Hmm.
okay, like what do I want out of my life? Like what are my
Hmm.
priorities? And like who's the person I want to be? What's the mark I want to leave on this world? And all of that. And so I was like, it sounds cheesy, but like I was just trying to like find myself. I was like, I need to get out of what I'm doing, because where I'm at and what I'm doing is not beneficial for my growth as a human, my growth as a Catholic, my growth as a member of society. So like, what can I do about that? And so we watched the movie, and I was, my mom again was just like, let's watch a fun movie. And at the end of the movie, I'm like, I'm gonna go do that. And she's like, oh, like of course me like taking it too far.
Ooh.
So that, yeah,
At least you didn't, I don't know, you didn't watch Apollo 13 or something like that. I'm like, I don't know where you will be right now.
yeah. Funny enough, my grandfather was the flight director for Apollo 13. So
What?
hmm
These are
random
things that
fact.
happen. I'm like, and this was totally random. I didn't choose the, we didn't talk before the
We
interview. It was
definitely didn't
totally
talk about that, but
random. I'm like, really? We'll have to
yep,
go back to that one day with
yep.
Bia when you come
We'll
back to
circle back to
Papua.
that. But anytime
Wow.
you throw that fact out there, I
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's so cool.
he's my
But
hero.
anyway, I'm like, that's so funny that a lot of people say like, what happened if you have seen, I don't know, the mission. I'm like, when
Mhm.
you went into, like just convert all the Africa or whatever. I'm like, no, but you watched the movie.
I watched the movie, and I think in times like that where you're kind of, I don't, distressed isn't the right word, but just kind of like searching for something
Hmm.
different, something new, something healing, whatever it may be, your mind's a lot more malleable at that point. So I think if I had
Yeah.
watched that movie on like a random day in a
Right.
different time of my life, I would have been like, oh, that's a nice movie. But I just felt like it was honestly like divine intervention when I watched it, and just how it like left an impact on like my soul. And like we watched it and I was like, oh, that's a cool movie, whatever. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about it for like the next week. I was like, this is sticking with me so much more than anything else ever has. And I just took that as a sign. So I guess we watched it October. I had my entire trip booked before Christmas.
Wow. And that's, I like what you say, sometimes you see something or something happens and you're like, this is, just, something happened, whatever. You can be in top of your head for a little bit. But then when you're Catholic or Christian or whatever, and you think something, or when you believe just in the Camino and the way Mother sometimes tell us different things. And that's what I always say. Sometimes the Camino appears in so many random ways that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and it's right away. I hear other stories of people that suddenly 10 years, 15 years later, they're like, wow, that was the first time that I got in touch with the Camino de Santiago. And it set out, a series of events that lead into that day. So you watched the Camino, you say you were going to a rough time, but how, I'm like, from the point you watched the movie to the point you're like, I'm booking the tickets, I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking a whole time off, I'm going into this incredible journey. What happened in between?
I think I really just took a lot of time to self reflect, and there's so many reasons not to, and there's so many excuses not to. But I was just like, you know, I can't just sit here and do nothing about the way I'm feeling and the circumstances I'm in. And like, this is fully in my power to change this. And like, everything happens for a reason. And I do believe that God wanted me to see that movie at that exact time. And I was like, you ask for a sign and he screams it at you. It would be
Hmm.
dumb not to listen to it. So I started immediate as the type A person I am. I did all the research in the world that I possibly could, and I just kind of started getting my ducks in a row. And it feels like it happened overnight because I booked it in December, and then I left end of April. But in that time period, I had to quit my job, move out of my apartment, get someone to watch my dog. He just stayed with my parents, but like there was a lot of. It wasn't
Those
just like,
things,
oh, I'm gonna go
yeah,
to.
that you need to put all together before you left. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna just go to the beach. Like this was all in all, it was a 60-day thing, where you're in
Still.
a different city every night. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and getting all the gear and doing all the training and trying to brush up on my Spanish and like all of that kind of stuff. So it kept me really busy, just to be, because there's always more to read, there's always more to learn,
Mhm.
there's always more to listen
That's,
to.
yeah.
It's kind of addicting a little bit. I was like, I have to know every single thing, and I have all these just like insane spreadsheets of like all
Wow.
the.
I would love to see those
Oh,
expresses
I'll
one
have to
day.
send
Like,
you. It's nuts of just of every single day. every single town I go through, everything I want to see in each town. Like the number of hours I spent on that is embarrassing. But it was, yeah, it was just great. I was like, I'm gonna go do this. It's gonna be once in a lifetime. I want to be prepared. All the things, which is it's ironic because it's a little bit counterintuitive of the point of the Camino, which is like to go and to be. I'm like, okay, it's 7:32. Where do we do? So I think it helped me relax that impulse of mine to be like,
But I know, and I know that feeling. I've always been a planner. I've always been an Excel person at seats, at planning things, and things lead to success and lead things to objectives and all that kind of things. And when you came from a, you know, that kind of life that you've been put on that all the time. When people said go to the Camino without anything ready, I'm like, I can imagine. And many people that I interviewed, they're like, that there's no way I can go all the way to another country for more than a whole month without anything planning. I'm like, I will feel so insecure, so stressed out that I'm not gonna be able to do it. So a lot of people when they start talking about the way of walking the Camino de Santiago, I'm like, there's no one way because there's no one people.
mhm.
There's
Yeah,
all these different situations. There's people that do it by themselves. There's people that sleep on a tent. There's people that go from hotel to hotel, and you don't know how people. So now this new trend that there is only one way of walking, and of course I believe there is one way that is it can be better, but it's not the best. It's just there is so many different ways. So I like that some people, and also the pleasure that you found probably preparing all of that and doing the research. That's incredible
yeah, yeah. It was great. And then I also I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I had like that kind of extra planning
on
aspect
top
to
of
it,
the.
making sure I have all my supplies and get for that long of a period, because I was like, that would be horrible if I get there and I can't finish because I can't get the medical supplies that I
Mhm.
need. So that was just kind of an extra little hurdle. But I'm so thankful for like the technology that we have these days, because I feel like even 5 or 6 years ago, doing something like this would have been really difficult as a diabetic. But
Mhm.
now with all the medical technology we have, it was I think I would have counted myself out. I've been like, oh, I can't do that. I have diabetes. Like, what do you mean? So I'm very grateful that that had no hindrance on my ability to do this.
So how was, probably the planning and everything, people will get more easy that, you get an Excel, you start researching, you start searching all these places up and down. There is a ton of information about what to do in Spain, about how to
Mhm.
walk the Camino de Santiago, but probably not so much information about traveling to Spain when you're a type A diabetic. So what did you find out? What helped you, for the people that can be listening to this podcast one day, and I already interviewed two people, that had this issue. And I
Mhm.
think it's something that is really tricky because in Spain, the whole situation for the diabetic is so different than what, coming from another country. So how did you do the research? Why ended up, or how did you plan the whole thing?
So from the diabetes aspect, I guess I was diagnosed when I was 13. So I think it's just so ingrained in my just like daily
Yeah.
life and daily routine. The hardest part was honestly like battling insurance to get, because they usually only will give, or my circumstance, they'll give you 30 days at a time. And I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I need more than that. So it was kind of just like front loading the supplies was the most important part. And I had everything under the sun that I could need, and backups to my backups. Cause I was like, I'm not going to let this be some kind of reason that I don't get to finish this. And that's kind of my mindset about it in general, is just like, it's like you wake up every day, you brush your teeth. I wake up every day, I check my blood sugar. It's just part
Yeah.
of life. And that's the mindset I have about it. So I think the diabetes was kind of one of the least of my concerns, because I felt so over prepared in that aspect. I was
Uh-huh.
like, whatever happens, I'm prepared for that. So that was good. Um, but in terms of the actual Camino, I used a company called Follow the Camino. Um, but I'm gonna have you plan my next one. So
Of course, we would love to. Because, one of the things that surprised me the most is with medical things. When I travel and I don't have any issues, but even sometimes, like, but with diabetes, how did you plan all your, because at the end, as you were saying, and also you were not only staying in Spain, then you went to Italy with your family, so you have to plan a super longer stay. Probably
yes.
being from the States, I don't know if you can buy anything here at pharmacy or you can go to a hospital. How does all that work? Because for me, being an Spaniard is such an unknown that I have people like you ask me, it's like, how
Mm.
this is working in Spain. I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not diabetic. I can tell you other things, I can tell you where you can get a hearer device or whatever, but it's a big issue because right now I think more people and more people, like we were saying, they feel like this used to be 5, 10 years ago impossible, but now finally it's possible for me to do something like this.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's all controlled by my phone, and my glucose monitor, my insulin pump talk to each other directly, like in the background. So it's a lot more seamless and a lot more
Uh-huh.
automated than it was. But so what I had done was I packed what I needed, and then my parents came for the last part of the Camino, and then we did a family trip in Italy after. And so I had a separate little packing cube for them to bring to me,
Bring it to
and then I
Spain.
had a third packing cube like set aside in case anything were to happen that my parents could mail to me. And I think if I needed to, like I could go to a hospital or something and get a vial of insulin or whatever.
And that's the thing. I think that like here in Spain, you will have to go to the ER. Like if you go to a pharmacy or to a normal like little village hospital, they will say no. I think if you go to the ER, they will give you right away. But that's kind of like, and also coming from the States, that everything is so company based that you have your own company, your own everything that you've
Very
been used,
segregated.
your device, everything is really specific. And I don't know how that works in Spain. Maybe we'll have to do one day. We'll have to find someone here
Yeah.
in Spain with a good English, and we'll do a round table and because it's incredible how many. I'm like, I don't know, but I found already 5 or 6 people in my
Mhm.
caminos that come, and I think it's super amazing that you decided to go with, like, because at the end, I've been working on a ambulance, that that for you guys, I'm like, something, some bad things can happen easier than others, and that's one of the things that I was wondering. How do you manage, during the Camino, during the days, the walking? Do you have any extra, like sugar treats that you carried? How do
Mhm.
you manage them? Like, because also going on the Camino for a lot of people is the unknown. I'm like, the first day, going to St. John,
Yeah.
is that going to be super, too much for me? And then the weather, because at the end, also going to the meseta, if it's super hot or not, I'm like, the weather, the sugar. How did you manage all of that during your Camino?
Yeah, so I had these little, like they're called like glucose SOS, I think. And the best way I can describe, they're like these little packets. And they remind me of like what were those fun dip things where it's like the powder and the like chalk stick that you
So it's
like
like the running gels that we
kind
runners
of,
have
yes,
for races.
it's like a flavored like powder, I guess. And
Okay.
I just kept those like in every I had like in my pocket, in my shoe, in my backpack, like anywhere easily where I could just whip one out. And I remember the very first day I was walking with two women, and I had to eat probably 17 of them because my body was just like, what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
Yeah, but they were so like kind and patient and helpful with me. And I met another girl while I was walking who was also diabetic. She had different like apparatuses, I guess, than I did. But it's just cool to see other people doing that and not letting them hold them back. But yeah, I had all kinds of sugar. I had all kinds of extra insulin. I had 4 different methods of administering the insulin. I was prepared for every scenario there.
And
And it
also, were
really
you the one
was.
that have like a tag on your boot?
Yes, yeah, I did. I had a tag on my boot and on my backpack that just in case something were to happen and a paramedic or somebody found me, they would see the medical
No,
alert
right away.
on my phone and my watch as well. So I was definitely over prepared.
But one of the things that a lot of people, when they come to the community, think, "Oh, this is just an easy peasy. This is a walk through the super nice." I'm like, people die in the Camino de Santiago. People got injured. I seen from German lost and found in 2 days because he was out on the side of the road. This summer there was 2 people that died because of a heart attack. So,
I saw
you
that.
know, uh, I would say that over planning is never a bad thing, and mostly when you have something medical, just to plan for, and because at the end, what happened if you just fall and nobody knows and they're trying? I'm like, I don't know, something that I'm like you. I'm more a planner, and when you're seeing a couple of things, you're like, better to plan for the worst and wish for the best than the other way around.
Yeah, I definitely had more supplies and stuff than I needed, but I know I would have kicked myself if I had like done all this stuff and gotten all the way there and prepared and everything and then had to like leave early because
Fly back.
a health issue. So I'm very grateful that I didn't have any issues.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the first day, and how was that first day? Suddenly, after so many years of working, the hard work, suddenly you're here in Spain. First time in Spain, was it?
First time in Spain. Yes. I had been
First
abroad,
time.
hadn't been to Spain.
Then you're in Spain. Suddenly, you're by yourself, and you're in a French little village, ready to start the longest journey of your life. How did it feel?
It was incredible. I had some like hiccups with flights getting there, and so I got kind of in my head like, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't like a precursor for how this is going to go, and I had to just let go of all of that and just exist and be. And I remember going to the Pilgrim's Mass the night before I started. I just felt like this overwhelming like calmness and just like, this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was just such a cool, it's really hard to put into words, but I think the whole time I just felt like I had this almost like bubble of protection around me just at all times, just like calmness. And it was really great. But I do remember that it was the first day, and I'm in Texas, like it's pretty flat here. I'm like, I can go get on the Stairmaster or something. Like I flew during Christmas time. I flew to Arizona actually to see one of my friends, and I was like, I need to go hiking. I need some elevation. Like it's gonna kick my butt. I don't know what to do. I was walking with an Irish girl who she's lovely. She like runs marathons and is very fit. And she's just like not even breaking a sweat, not breathing hard, and I was like, okay, I'm going to keep up with her for like as long as I can. And then at some point I was just like, all right, I was like, just go ahead of me, go ahead. And I think it was probably like an hour and a half in. So we weren't even in Roncesvalles yet. And I was just in my head. I was like, what have I just signed up for? Like, what am I doing? I'm not going to make it. Like, this was a mistake, like questioning everything. But then I remember turning a corner and seeing Roncesvalles, or sorry, not Roncesvalles, Orison. Sorry, seeing
Oh,
Orison
son. Oh,
tucked.
that's the best thing
I
in the
remember
morning when
in
you
my head,
just
I'm
see
like, if
that
it's
bar.
not
It's like,
around this corner, like I'm going, like I'm done. And then at first I didn't see it, and then but it's because it's kind of tucked in there,
oh
and
yeah.
clear weather. So and I sat there and I was like, okay. And I think that was the most difficult part for me because after that, yes, you're still going up, but it's
But
not
it's different.
really the same
And it's not like this. And also, once you know the first check-in, you're like, I made it.
Yes. And I knew that was the hardest part. Like I was going into it, like I was
Yeah,
aware
you have your plan, your Excel sheet probably with like, this 5Ks with 5%, then I go here.
pretty much. Hmm. Yeah. But so that I think that I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to be able to do this. But it was like so rewarding once I got there.
And I think, one of the things that gives meaning to the whole journey is the first day. I totally invite everyone, even non-Catholics, to go to the Mass in St. John because it's so
Mhm.
beautiful. It's such a little small church, and also the Mass usually is on the side of the church, and the priest invites everyone for the blessing. And that's kind of like the beginning of the communion. And then you arrive to Roncesvalles, and then suddenly you are part of that community because in Roncesvalles, there's no, many hotels. It's not a big city. There's
Everyone's
only
all
one
right
place
there.
for everybody to be there. So that's again, and by the time you arrive to Pamplona, that's it. You're part of the thing.
Mhm.
But one of the things that, I think a lot of people they watch and, like you, they go to all these blogs, all these YouTube channels. And what I seen lately, you listen and you hear about the whole going up to Sunjan. But I think what killed most of the people is the going down to Zubiri. Were you one of those that were you like, Sunjan was not that bad when you start going down to Zubiri?
Zubiri, yes, and it had rained, so
Wow.
it was slippery as well. And what the other diabetic that I had, she was like, she was like a goat or something. Like she went down faster than I thought humanly possible. Like was just like so secure in her footing and was just like powering down. And I was like, this is where I'm gonna like tear my knee or roll an ankle. And so I took that part pretty slow. I used my sticks very, very heavily there. So yeah, I would almost rather go up than go down just because it's scary. And you can, one wrong step and it's like, especially when those
Man, it's
rocks
tricky.
have
That
that
part is
thick
quite it's
layer
quite
of
tricky,
slippery.
yeah.
Yeah. That was the first time I got to wear my poncho though, was going into Zubiri.
That's the Camino. Right
Mhm.
now, today has been super warm till today in Pamplona. Today's finally rain, but the weather is changing for sure. So, yeah, you never know what to
You
expect.
never know.
But then one of the things that I love about your trip, and a lot of things, one of the things for me being from Pamplona, the most beautiful city in the whole Camino, the best city in Spain, of
Yeah.
course, it's like that people go by flying by. But when you plan your Camino, you decided to take some days extra. I'm like, was your first big holiday, timing off? I'm like, you work your ass off for years and you have the time and the money to spend. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people sometimes when they do the first Camino, they want to keep with their family, they want to keep with their group, they want to. And I'm like, sometimes you don't know the next time you're going to come to Spain. Sometimes usually it's, the next year because you plan another Camino right away. But why did you decide to take your Camino, slow and visiting all these cities along the Camino?
Yeah, I decided to because I left my job, so I was like, now's the time. Like I'm like, if I'm gonna do it, I should fully maximize this because I don't know when I'll have an opportunity again to have
Hmm.
this much, uncharted time where I'm not stressed about getting back for work, or people are, covering what I'm supposed to be doing, things like that. So I felt very truly free and like very on my own in like a good way. And I think it was a good opportunity to be just like pretty selfish, to be honest. I was like, I'm going to do this. This is for me. This is for my growth and my healing and my adventure. And like, I'm going to do it exactly the way I want to do it. And that took a lot for me because I'm a people pleaser in a lot of areas in my life. So to be like, no, this is exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And like, I had never been to Spain. I've been to Europe and London and places like that. But and the Spanish culture, I find it so beautiful. And so I was so fascinated by it. And like the Catholicism culture, all of that, that's so deep rooted. So I was like, I'm going to just take full advantage of this. It's not a race. That's not the
Take your
point of
time.
it. So I was like, I'm going to stop, take my time. And because it's like, you don't want to walk to the point where you're walking so far every day that when you get to where you're going, you're just so exhausted. You don't even, because you're seeing a new town every day, which is such a
Yeah.
cool experience. And
More
I'm like,
than one sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I don't want to roll in at 4:30 p.m. and just be exhausted. I want to get there, between 1 and 3, depending on how many stops I make along the way, and have time and energy, honestly, to
Mhm.
enjoy it.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, like a lot of people, they rush the Camino. And if, of course, it's a great experience if that's what you have the time. But if you have the time, I'm like, I discovered a while ago a group on Facebook that's called the Slow Strollers on the Camino. They
I
do
should
like 12K a day. I'm like,
yeah.
that's amazing. If I have the time,
Hmm.
I'm like, can you imagine just walking 12K, have the time to stay in every little village for 2 hours, visit the church, to talk with the locals, have a coffee, have a beer, and then walk again. I'm like, you don't care. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was very blessed for the situation that I was in, that I was able to take the time that I wanted. And I'm
But one
very
of the things that
grateful for the way I did it.
a lot of people will ask you, and like you find all these people that walk with you and suddenly you stop and they continue. How was the feeling, or how do you manage all of that? Because probably doing the Camino the way you do, you never have a whole, pack of like
Mhm.
pilgrims around. You will probably make different packs. And I also believe that that's a great way because you meet many more people and that's more, fulfilling than just a whole one group for the whole Camino.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the transient nature of it is like one of the many beautiful parts about it. But I think I had talked to you about it when I saw you, because I had formed this group of, there was a couple of girls from Oregon, there was a girl from London, a girl from Ireland, a girl from Atlanta. Like we had this whole little like girl squad that we had, like, it was just so fun, and none of them took a rest day in Pamplona. I almost convinced my friend Beth to stay, but then she was
I
like,
remember that.
yeah, I was like, we gotta get her to stay. But and so I was like, oh, I like lost my whole group of friends, because you build these people and you build these
Mhm.
connections, and you're all going, whatever your reason you're there, you're all trying to work towards the same goal. And so it's just very bonding, a very quick bonding that you don't really get in any other
Also, the
circle.
first day is like the first
Yes,
day,
it's
like
like
when you
first
go
day
to school, to
school,
college, is the first day, like we are all like, oh, all these weird people are like me.
exactly. Yeah. So it's just like finding people that you're drawn to, and that kind of stuff. So it was sad to like lose people, but it also, it's a good thing because it challenges you to meet more people. Because if you for me personally, like I went by myself, which is what I wanted, because I feel like, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, but
Hmm.
if you go with a
Yeah,
group, you're not as
yeah, open to others,
enticed
and yeah,
to
and
meet
also
more
groups are,
people.
sometimes are scary for people that are by themselves. If you see a
It can
group,
be
they're like,
intimidating.
ooh, do I belong there, or do they want me to be part of that group? It's just yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about like my goals for my specific Camino, like going in it alone was the way to do it for me, and I'm grateful I
Hmm.
did. I met hundreds of people that have impacted my life and in my life in so many different ways. It's just really cool. So the transient come and go kind of thing is just part of the deal.
And that's one thing, that a lot of people are like, if you have to choose right now the way to do it, will you continue and do it just, the way you did it, or will you do it all together with a group of friends that you find on the first days?
I liked the way I did it.
And
I
did you
feel
have any day that you were like, like any more days like Pamplona, like, so maybe I would love to go with these people, or trying to convince them to stay? Or once you passed that kind of like the beginning point, it was like, no, I'm gonna meet more people, or was it still a struggle every time?
No, it was I was so excited to meet more people, and like every day you wake up and you're like, who am I gonna meet today, and like what am I gonna learn about them, and how are they gonna impact my life? One other circumstance I had that was like, so, not similar but similar. So there was a man named Kevin who's doing the whole thing, and he has 2 kids. He has a son and a daughter, and his son came and did the first week. I didn't meet him, Connor. And then his daughter came and did the second week, named Molly, and her and I were just like fast friends. Like very like I don't know how it happened overnight. Like we're still like trying to figure out when we're going to do the Portuguese one together. But she was only there for a week, and I was like, you know what? You should just quit your job and just not go back. Just stay. Just finish the whole thing. You know, whatever.
Pushing people to quit their jobs in the Camino?
I'm
Is
trying. I
that
was
what
trying.
God put you
Her
here
dad would
for?
not please. Her dad
Maybe.
was like, "Can you stop?" And I was like, "I'm like, it would be so fun. We can finish together, like all this stuff." So it was sad when she left because she was, yeah, we got close quickly, but obviously she had to go back to her job. So that was funny though.
That's amazing. And how was the whole thing, the Camino, knowing I'm like you staying in little places, also you take your time. One of the things also that I'm glad, we have you here because also sometimes you take a good day to sleep in a good hotel. And think that's, also when you travel to a place like Spain, that is your first time, that is the thing. I'm like, sometimes is, if you go to a big town, I tell to people, albergues are great and that's a great experience, but every once in a while going to one of those amazing, I know the brand hotels, but go to this little local,
Mm-hmm.
or hostels that they have these little houses and villages that they are just history in the pure concept. I'm like, it's amazing. So what can you tell us for that experience, and going and sleeping in a great bed? Some.
Yeah, it was good. We kind of talked about this before, how people say there's like a right and a wrong way to do it, and I don't believe that. I believe, however, it benefits you and your goal
Mhm.
being there. I don't think there's a wrong way at all. So I didn't stay in many albergues, but I was like, I want to have a good night's sleep, and again with the diabetes stuff, like my stuff beeps, or like it keeps me up. Like
Mhm.
I just wanted to be getting quality sleep to be prepared for the walking. But there were some little villages that I stayed in. The population's like 12 people, and those 12 people live and breathe to house and feed pilgrims, which is just so cool. And I remember one specifically. It was in this like tiny little town during the Meseta, and the owner of it was just this over the top, full of life guy. And everyone sits down in the dining room and eats at the same time because it's like his wife's cooking dinner for everybody, and it's so cool. And it was a Sunday too, so most everything was closed anyways. And he like comes over to my table. I'm sitting with like 4 or 5 people that are like all much older than I am, and he just like picks me up out of my chair and starts like dancing with me like through the dining room, and like he's just like spinning me around, and like he just was so full of life, and it was such a breath of fresh air that these people are so happy with what they do.
And that's what I always try to do, when people ask me to help them and design their Camino, I'm like, it's great every once in a while. I'm like, here in Pamplona, we have Hemingway's Hotel La Perla. That if
Mm-hmm.
you have the money and you're a Hemingway follower, I'm like, sleeping in Hemingway's bedroom, that's a once in a lifetime. That's
Yeah.
like the Camino for some people. And sometimes, there's this little hotels that they're boutique, that they're run by locals, that they put their heart. I'm like, and that's amazing. And sometimes you have
Family off.
those local albergues that they have, the private room for people like you that they need, more privacy, or you don't want to bother any others, and you get a good night relax. So there's that mix that you can make, that sleeping on the floor is great also, but if you have the chance, and some people they can, I'm like, so, if you're older, I'm like, sleeping on the floor can kill you. I'm like, I'm not kidding. For me right now, just waking up from the floor is getting harder and harder. But
Yeah. There were times where I kind of regretted not staying in the albergues, like especially making friends with some of the like people that were more my age, because there's kind of two groups of
mhm,
people. There's like people my age, and then there's people that are retired. There's kind of like no.
there's more groups in between.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like I would hang out with all these people, that were my age, and then they would all go to the albergue, and I'd be like, oh, and then I would like go hang out with like my retired friends who are equally as great, but um and I learned different things and valued different things in both age groups. But there were
That's
times where I was like,
also
oh, I wish I was like
another great thing
in a
that
bunk
I
room with
like people
everyone.
like you, that once you have walked your Camino, you seem like maybe next time I will try to find more little albergues to go with the people. And that's what I tell to all these, sometimes we have all these haters in the, oh no, people that go to hotels. I'm like, no, maybe sometimes they're looking and they will be back. And
Yeah.
that's what I like about the Camino, that, and you realize, you said right now, like, it is great to have the people in the albergue, but one of the things also that you can do, if you go to a hotel, there's nothing wrong. You can go and hang out with your albergue friends at the albergue or at the bar close to the albergue.
Yep.
Just ask them where they are. But it is your Camino and yours only. And that's what I think, is what we keep saying all the time.
Exactly. So it's like, while I wouldn't go back and change anything I did, because I think everything happened the way
Yeah.
it did for a reason. Like, it's just things to pull from going forward, especially, and now too, like, being, because you read about it and you all these things, but you're not actually prepared until you're there. And so now realizing, like, how easy it is to communicate with people and how willing people are to help and all these kinds of things, I feel a lot more confident in not being so planned out.
Nothing bad in planning things, but sometimes give it a try. I always say, if you're a planner, just maybe a couple of the days, don't go, during the big summer and the last 100Ks, but maybe left a couple of days in the Mesetan plan to see what happened. You always have booking.com. So, in
Exactly.
Barca, you're always going to find a bed to sleep. And then you start walking, you start finding all these people, but you know that your family were waiting to walk with you. How was
Mhm.
that feeling of suddenly all these clean people, they haven't walked the Camino, they're not pilgrims, and they're joining you? Were you excited? Were you like, I want to finish this by myself? Was that one of the things that you wonder, like, should I maybe did this differently?
Yeah, I was really excited. So they met me in Saria. And
Hmm.
the night before I was in, what was it, Tria Castella, which was so fun.
Stella?
Yeah, and there was it was a big soccer game. I think it was like Real Madrid versus Liverpool or something, which I'm told is like y'all Super Bowl. And I'm like, okay, everyone's getting really into this. I don't know. I was just like, sure,
I
whatever.
don't know about soccer. I have probably the same knowledge of, American football than European football. So
Yeah. So I was like, okay, but everyone, and there's Tria Castell is pretty small, and there's only a handful of restaurants
yeah,
in two or three. So everyone's like at the same restaurant, just like living it up, having the life of the party. And while you hang out and you do things, you don't really stay up that late. Like, or I hadn't
yeah,
been, but we were out late watching that game. And I was not feeling my best self on the walk to Saria. There was a lot of free wine that was being passed our way and not a lot of sleep. And, so I was like, ooh, I was like, I got to shake this off before my parents get here. So I like tried to go as fast as I could to get there before them, to like get in a better headspace for them to get there. And, I'm really glad that they came and that I got to share that with them. It was definitely an interesting twist, or not twist, but it was just a different set of circumstances. Like, I think it's an adjustment on its own getting to Saria, and that last part
hmm,
just has a very different
yeah.
feel, and it just has a different vibe. So I was kind of trying to cope with that, as well as like not only thinking about myself and what I was going to be doing, but also
Hmm.
thinking about my parents and all of that. So definitely it changed the tone and in the vibe and that kind of stuff. But I'm still very grateful for it. It wasn't a bad change. It was just I
Hmm.
had to like adjust a little bit to be like, oh, I need to consider, like, when they have to go to the bathroom, like stuff like, it's just like
I
I
wasn't
was,
just my Camino. I walk with
yeah, I
more
was on
people and
such
I
a
have
one
to.
track
And
mind.
I'm the one in charge, no? Because probably you were the one guiding them and doing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And I had been doing it for over a month at that point. So it's like I had gone through the blisters and I had gone through the aches and pains, but that was all new to them. And so I had to be like, oh, I had to just be considerate of all of that. Versus I was like in my stride, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And they're like, whoa, like we just got
Hey,
here.
hey,
Everyone
hold on.
relax.
We just arrived. We are.
Yeah, but it's a really cool experience to get to share with your parents. And I don't think many people have that opportunity. And I felt so supported by them, for them not only because when I started telling people, I got some mixed reviews. Like, some people are like, "Are you okay?
Oh,
Like, do you need to talk?" Like, and some people were like so excited for me. And so just having them be like, "We support you. We want you to do this. We think this is going to be life changing for you," was just really cool, and I'm really thankful for that. And it's an
and have
experience
it
that we'll,
done.
we'll always share.
And that's something that you will always have. That memory will always stay there forever. And that's probably amazing.
Yeah.
And how was the arrival? I'm like, the arrival by itself in Santiago is amazing, but how was arriving in Santiago after all your crazy journey, finally getting there with your parents?
It was great. We ended up finishing a day early because I can't remember the town we were in. But it was only like, I think it was like 6K outside
Hmm.
of Santiago. So I'm like, okay, that's like an hour of walking, maybe, probably less. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
a little more, a little more. Usually, it's
We were walking
usually
quickly.
as walkers do like 5K an hour. That's
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah. I think that's what I was doing. Yeah. I was like 3 miles an hour. Yeah. Okay. But we were sitting there, and there was kind of nothing to do. And were kind of just like ready to be there a little bit. So we were like, should we just do it? Like, let's just finish. So we ended up finishing like that evening, and we finished like on June 3rd, which is the day my parents met and my sister's
Wow.
birthday. And it was just like, it was just like, felt like a cool day to finish. And there were several people that I had, you know, lost and found along the way that were there that I ran into as we were walking into the square, and, you know, that were like like waiting, you know, to like
Hmm.
usher you in. Like, I think that kind of stuff is just, it's just so cool. I remember I was like, I don't want to see it at all until I'm standing in that.
And you were one of those that walk like
I
and then
walked
turn
I
around.
walked all the way around, and I walked like literally like this. Like, my dad was making sure I didn't like run into things or people or trip. And like, cause you know, there's that shell that's like engraved in the middle of the
Yes.
square. I was like, I'm gonna
Hmm.
put my feet inside of that, and I'm gonna take a
And then
deep breath and like a moment of gratitude, and then I'm gonna look up. And like, I have goosebumps right now, even just talking about it. It was just such a cool, it's the biggest thing I've accomplished in my life. And I was like, I did this. You know, you can do hard things, you can do challenging things. You know,
hmm
the brightest spots come out of darkest times.
yeah.
And it just really changed a lot of my outlooks on life and on a lot of different things.
That's amazing because that was one of my questions. I usually said how the Kendall that started the Camino changed into the Kendall that finished the Camino.
Yeah, I think like physically I'm the same, but I feel like like my soul and my spirit and my heart are just like completely changed. I think my priorities in life are a lot different, and just how I choose to spend my time and my energy, and just realize it's humbling. It's gratifying, but it's also humbling because you're like, I just did this really cool thing, and I'm like, but I'm also like, millions of other people who have their own incredible life stories have also done this. So it's like you're like
Yeah.
one small piece in such a huge, beautiful puzzle of history. And while it's like, it's so cool that like I'm that piece, it's like you also take a step back and realize I'm this piece of this. Um, so that it's just, it's humbling and gratifying, I think, is a good way to put it.
I think, the best way I love the thing that you say, the cinema, like I love the piece because at the end you get all these little pieces for all the people that you met. And you were so lucky because the way that you walk allowed you to meet much more people, much more many people. And also, you give a little bit of yourself to everyone that you met along the way. And that's what I think, is I'm like, but that's how we are coming to people. I'm like, because the whole thing of the way is about the people and what you take and what you give. And it is incredible how, I'm like you and I'm like, suddenly we met in Pamplona, we have a couple beers, suddenly, hey, you are friends. Haha, amazing.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else in the world that this happens.
Yeah. That culture is just unparalleled. And I think one of the main words I have for it is it's very like equalizing, like, because everyone you meet
Hmm. Yes.
has, you know, it's like regardless of age, you know, background, where you're from, what you do, who you love, whatever, like everyone just working towards that same goal. And it just, it's very equalizing. And it's just like the only thing that matters is how can
Mhm.
I help someone else achieve that goal, and they feel the same towards me. It's like, oh, do you have band-aids? I don't have band-aids. Like, oh, do you have a snack? Oh, I don't have, you know, it's like everyone, like they say the Camino provides, and it's like it's
Mhm.
so true. And everyone's, I feel like, at their like truest, simplest form, and in the best
Mhm.
way possible,
Yes, I agree.
brings the best
And
out
also,
of people.
but one of the things, we talk sometimes about the Camino blues. I'm like, for
Yeah.
you in your case, you finished the Camino, but then you went to your family to Italy, and then you won on a volunteer trip to South America, and then you were back. When did the Camino blues hit you, or maybe never hit you?
Oh, I think they hit me like daily. Like I think I'm so grateful for all of it. And I'm like, I felt like I was such a good version of myself. And it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, the hustle and bustle and like lose that. So I try and like, you know, bring myself back down and just think about like how I felt in certain moments of achievement while I was there,
Mhm.
and just really channel that. I think having my family there was really great, and then our trip to Italy, where my sister and brother-in-law met us, was really fun, just to make a whole thing out of it. And I feel like I did a lot of internal like healing and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and just like growth throughout the Camino. And then I had the volunteer trip to Honduras, where I got to work with some kids, which was a little bit it wasn't like, so I had the Camino that was the healing aspect, and then I had the Honduras part that was like just very eye opening, and like you can make an impact on this world and you can
Mm.
help people for the better. So I think those two coupled together was the best I could have
That's
asked for.
the new Kendall right now.
Hmm. That's the
And I
goal.
agree. I love the way like, the Camino family, and then some, a time to give time
Hmm.
for people, working for others. And, that's one of the things that talking today, there was a mom that came from Australia, they live in Holland, and she was doing the Camino, and then we started talking, and her oldest is going to come and probably, take a gap year. And I was like, that should be mandatory. You go to the Camino 1 month for yourself, and then you go and put a couple of months for others. And
Yeah.
then you decide, whatever. I'm like,
It just teaches you so many things about yourself and about how you view the world and how you handle situations that you can't simulate that any other way. So I'm like, God willing, I get to have kids, and in between high school or college, I'm gonna be like, see you in
they're
3 months.
gone.
Yep. Yeah, like
Go,
go
go
do it.
walk.
Maybe I'll come meet you for a beer or something. I don't know, but
Maybe not. Surprise.
yeah.
That will be pretty cool. Yeah. Have since you came from the, back, what are your friends telling you when when you share this experience? Because that's one of the things that a lot of, we Camino freaks we go through. Then you start chatting Camino, Camino, and your friends like, I'm done, dude. Shut up.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Camino evangelist. But no, my friends have. I'm so grateful for all of them. My friends and family. They've been so supportive and just so like loving and kind about all of it. And they'll. When I got back, I had like so many. I'm still having them. I just had one the other day because there was a girl I hadn't seen since I got. She's like, "Oh, tell me about Spain," and I'm like, I feel like people are probably like tired of me talking about it.
Yeah.
But like, I'll never get tired of talking about it.
No,
But no, they're
that will
all
never
like.
happen.
Exactly. They're all like, we're so proud of you. Like because I made like a separate Instagram for like a scrapbook for myself, honestly, just so like
Hmm.
I could look back on it. And they all followed along, and like my mom's friends followed along, and like my dad's, coworkers or what. So it was cool. And like all these random people would reach out and be like, oh, this is so inspiring. And it's like, if I get to be that for somebody else,
Hmm.
that's so cool. And even while I was
Yeah.
there was a girl who was several years older than me in my, or two or three, not several, 2 or 3 years older than me in my sorority. And she reached out. She was like, oh my gosh, like my family and I are going to do this, like, because you did it. And so they just did it back in September. They did the Saria de Santiago
Amazing.
part. And so just being able to spread the word, and to have, and people are like, oh, I lived through you. And like, it was so cool. Like that was just like an added bonus to the whole
And
thing.
that's when a lot of people they ask about the whole Instagram and the Camino, and like, it's not about showing me and the Camino or being, one of those. Like, it's just because that a lot of people they live, and a lot of people they ask me, it's like, I have a couple of people like, oh, you're doing your Camino, why you stop taking pictures? Like, mostly all of the time, I don't even post when I walk, I post, after.
Mhm.
But that's the thing, a lot of people they really feel glad for you, your family, your friends, and also you can inspire so many people. So why not?
Exactly. Yeah. I have several like, WhatsApp groups and stuff. And someone not too long ago was like, oh, I'm just like going through all my photos, like trying to relive it. Like I miss it, and all that kind of stuff. And just, it's nice if I don't feel that way, but if I were to ever feel like my friends are like, stop talking about this. I
Go
have,
to your WhatsApp friends group,
yeah, like they'll
Camino.
probably like have a group text on the side, like, oh my God, we're talking about this. No, I'm just kidding. They're wonderful. They're so happy for me, and they're so supportive, and like I'm even trying to convince one of my good friends to do one with me. Like I'm like, you don't have to quit your job, we'll do a shorter one, like whatever. But I also have that support system of people that have done it and lived it, and I can talk to them about it because I know they'll never get tired about it either, which is so cool to have that community after the fact.
Also, then that community that helps you to grow your Camino list, because one of the
Mhm.
things that I realized, and now you're part of that, is like you talk with someone, it's like, oh, I walked this Camino, or I just discovered this Camino, and I'm gonna do this Camino. So my question is always, what is your next Camino?
I want to do the Portuguese one.
Portuguese, inland, coastal?
I don't know.
Haven't decided yet.
Haven't decided. My friend sent me the guide. My friend Molly sent me the guidebook as my birthday present. She was like, "Here you go." But I don't know. I had several friends that traveled to like Lisbon and Porto after, like
Hmm.
just for fun, and it just looked
Yeah,
so beautiful. And I've never been
they're
to
beautiful,
Portugal.
amazing both.
I feel like the coastal would be really cool and just different. But I don't know.
I'm biased. I love the coastal. I'm like, and I
Yeah,
love Porto. For me, it's such a beautiful European city. Kind of like all kind of like still. Yeah, I don't know. It has a different vibe. You
different
stay a
vibe.
couple days. Lisbon is beautiful, but I don't know. I feel different in Lisbon.
Yeah, and it's
I-
it's it's a double-edged sword a little bit because as like excited, I while I was there, I was like, I'm just gonna like book another. I was like, I'm gonna go to Honduras. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna book another one, and I was like,
Keep on going.
it's
Travel.
it's an addiction a little bit. So I'm like, if I start
Totally.
researching now, like that itch is gonna get so strong that I'm not gonna be able to. Because ideally, I would like to do it September of next year. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm like, if I start that rabbit now or
That's
like that
perfect
hamster
timing.
wheel
Yeah.
now, like I'm gonna drive myself
Yeah,
crazy.
the ball is gonna be huge by September.
Yeah. So I'm like, I need to chill. I need to not think about it as much because I'll get ahead of myself and be like, I have to go tomorrow.
Anyway, for closing, if you have to tell, to someone that is listening to you that with the same situation, maybe someone with diabetes, maybe someone that is just fed up with the world, maybe someone that is, that's just need that call, what would you tell them?
Oh gosh. I think if anyone has like any inkling at all to do it, like just do it. Like there will always be reasons not to, but the reasons to do it and the reward from it are so much greater. And one of the this isn't necessarily like why you should do it, but I think something that like sums it up pretty well that a woman had said to me while we were walking. She said, like the first 2 weeks challenge you physically, the second 2 weeks challenge you mentally, and the last 2 weeks challenge your soul. And like I just think that's like such like everyone should, I think everyone in their lives should do some kind of Camino, and whether it's 2 days or it's 6 months or whatever you can set the time aside for. I think it challenges every aspect of your life in a way that you can't predict or you can't prepare for, and it's the most beautiful thing.
Totally. Give your time to yourself now that we go into this big ball that suddenly, we have this thing coming in into us, the whole COVID and everything. And suddenly you realize like, maybe it's good to slow down. It's good to think and where I'm going, as you were saying at the beginning, how I want to be remembered, what I want to live in this, this planet Earth that we call, and how I want to be, what I want to be spending my time. Because sometimes you go on that ball that you don't have time to think. That's why you keep going, and suddenly you're sort of like, what the heck happened?
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah. So I think graduating college, going to grad school, starting work, and just, you just get on that,
Mhm.
that lifestyle. And I was like, no, I need
Yeah,
to take a minute and realize like what's important to me. What do I value? What are the relationships I value? What is the way I want to spend my time? What are the organizations I value? And just take a second and just really, it's like take a breath and let all of that consume you, and just like the beauty of the walk, the beauty of the people, the beauty of the food, all, it's truly something you can't emulate.
totally agree. Anyway, Kendall, thank you so much, for putting into words what we all these pilgrims think. I hope that everybody, gets, ignited by your thoughts and by your
Go
words.
do
And,
it. Go
to
do
anyone
it.
that is there, they can go and check your Camino on Kendall on the Camino. You can see it right there,
Oh yeah.
spelled Kendall's name. And, you will see all this amazing experience that we love the Camino Santiago and that we are great to share. And if you have any questions, whatever, you have Kendall on Instagram, you have me on Instagram and Facebook. And, as we always say, buen camino, ultrella.
Bye.